Bigfoot, an undiscovered species?
Or a giant hoax?
Let's dive into that.
Now, before we dive in too deep on exactly if Bigfoot's real or a hoax, what exactly is Bigfoot?
So, for thousands of years, on all the continents, there have been stories of a very similar creature, a large hairy hominid that roams the woods, that roams the mountains. They go by different names: Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, the abominable snowman.
Now, the Yeti and the abominable snowman, they're not quite the same species of Bigfoot. They're their own entity. The Yeti you'll find more in colder temperatures like the Himalayas, and the abominable snowman quite isn't the Yeti, but it's very similar. The Yetis are known to be more like a bear-like creature, while Bigfoot you can see it more as more like an ape-like creature.
Yeah, so the North American Bigfoot or Sasquatch is what we're going to be covering mostly today. So for thousands of years, the Native American tribes all had stories about a hairy wild man. If you're not familiar, America prior to settlers, there were no horses, and so communication between tribes from across the country would have been very few and far between. So how did they all have similar stories of the same creature without being able to communicate with each other? Well, mainly thought to be indigenous to the Pacific Northwest, every state except for Hawaii has stories of Bigfoot.
Now, Bigfoot goes by many names. He'll go by Sasquatch, the skunk ape, he'll go by Grassman, and they're all the same creature. It just depends on where you live and what part of the country you're at.
So, now that you know what Bigfoot is, in case you didn't already know, do you think he's real?
So from everything I've seen and everything that people say and what's shown, I don't think he's real. I don't think there's enough evidence to show he's real. It just doesn't add up.
I completely disagree. I think that there are far too many sightings and different forms of evidence that prove that there is something in these woods. The eastern mountain gorilla, you know what you think of usually when you think of Africa, the big silverback gorillas in the mountains, those for hundreds of years were thought to be just some myth of a hairy monster in the mountains. But in the early 1900s, they were discovered, and in a little over 100 years, we have went from believing that is something of myth to something of complete fact and what everyone associates a species with. So if that can happen, it doesn't surprise me one bit if there are a complete undiscovered primate living in North America that with such dense forests and open area just hasn't been discovered yet.
So the thing about the silverback gorilla being found back in the 1900s, our population has clearly doubled, maybe even tripled what it used to be. And to say that we can't even capture a Bigfoot from even with all these sightings and all of them that could be existing, I don't think it's plausible that they exist. How could we not have captured a single Bigfoot?
Yeah, that's a good point. There hasn't been a recorded capture of Bigfoot. The evidence that backs up Bigfoot, there's obviously eyewitness sightings. You have the very famous footprints, which could be hoaxes, but they could also be real. But then you have popular evidence like the Patterson film, which is, as you guys know, the most famous video of Bigfoot walking through the woods in Northern California. And then there has been multiple hair samples and other DNA strands, which scientists have went through and found out that there's not a known species that matches those DNA strands, which is enough evidence for me to think that there's something in this woods that we don't know about.
I mean, one of the reasons to kind of counter what Bigfoot is, from everything I've heard, is it could just be a bear. I mean, bears are known to walk on their hind legs. They can get up on their legs and they can walk. And you would think that with all the trees and foliage in the way, you're not going to be able to clearly tell that it's a bear. But it could very easily be a bear when it's walking and going along.
I can't disagree with that. I think that there could be some misidentification with species, but what I don't understand is I've never seen a 10-foot long black bear walking through the woods, and Black bears are known to be able to stand on their hind legs, but I've never seen video of them walking significant distance, which you see in multiple video of Bigfoot. And to me, watching like the Patterson video and Patterson tape, that doesn't look like a bear to me.
I could see where you could say that. I mean, but there's also no proof that someone's not dressing up in a costume that looks similar to a bear just walking through the woods. I mean, I know a lot of people say the footprints, they're too far apart, they're taking very long steps, but you could have a 6'2" guy walking, and it could be just at the right angle to where he looks farther than he is, and the footprints probably aren't being measured out correctly. I mean, I don't know how many people will go out there with a tape measure, they're probably eyeballing what the distance is. I think it's just something easy that you can fool people with.
In this day and age, I could totally see there being the technology for someone to put on a gorilla suit and have it look realistic enough to fool people on camera. There isn't really a clear video of Bigfoot. It usually seems to be a quick shot or a very shaky video. I mean, I would be shaking a camera like crazy too if I saw a 10-foot tall creature out in the woods that I'd never seen before. The Patterson video, if I remember right, was filmed in the 60s. Roughly around the same time as Planet of the Apes, and the gorilla suits in Planet of the Apes were regarded as like the highest quality like costumes to date at that point in time. Where if you watch that movie, they don't look that real. They look like a guy in a gorilla suit. Where when watching that Patterson tape, if you watch it closely, you can see what looks like muscles and tendons moving inside of the fur, which that shows me I don't think it would be a guy in a suit, especially with how long the arms are. Those arms are huge, and it just doesn't look like it would be symmetrical to what a person would be.
Another thing that won't make sense to me on If He's Real is we have 12 seasons of the show called Finding Bigfoot. I don't know if you guys heard of it. It normally airs on Animal Planet or Discovery, one of those two channels. And it is up to about 12, 13 seasons now. And I don't believe in any single season they actually have video evidence of themselves finding Bigfoot. It's normally pictures or anything else that people from the town or the city have found. There's never one actually on the channel of them finding it. Now, it doesn't make sense to me on how they can go to so many areas so many times and not find a single shred of evidence of themselves. They have to always ask the people. And it's always people who live out in the country and they could just be seeing the same thing. Or maybe they're making it up. Maybe there's nothing actually going on. We don't know this. So I just feel like there's just not enough evidence for me to believe in Bigfoot.
I agree with that statement. There's so many Bigfoot and Sasquatch videos and documentaries, TV shows out where they never seem to find anything. 12, 15 seasons in, and the episodes all kind of seem the same. We're going to go out and hunt for Bigfoot, but we're going to find something this time, but never quite find anything. I don't know if you've watched, there's a Netflix documentary called Discovering Bigfoot.
I haven't seen it.
It takes place in Canada. This guy, he's an amateur Bigfoot hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And what he does is he goes out for weeks at a time and tries to make contact with them. And he even brings a couple scientists out there with him to try to see if they can come up with explanations to what he sees. Like, a couple examples are they're walking through the woods and they come across some red pines, and probably 6-7 feet up in the air, some of those red pines are snapped directly at a 90-degree angle. If you tried to do that yourself just by pulling on it, it would break down at the base. So something would have to be large enough where they could reach up there and create that force pressure to break it at that point. And they couldn't figure out what that was. They would set apples and other fruit really high up, and the next day they would be gone. Where that could be explained, maybe a raccoon climbed up there and got it, but it makes it hard for me to believe that it's something that isn't large that could come up there and get it, because a bear wouldn't be able to climb up that tiny post to get it, and it seemed like it was right around the same height where a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot would just have to reach up and grab it. There's also some video evidence and photo evidence of what looks like Bigfoot I'm not sure how accurate the documentary is. It could be one of those fake documentaries you see, one of those mockumentaries.
Mm-hmm.
But when I watched that documentary, it seemed real enough to me.
So I guess with everything that's been shown and everything that we've talked about, I just don't think there's enough to show for me personally that he's real. But I guess you could make a strong enough argument to where he might exist. But we want to know what you guys think. Do you think he's real, or do you think he's just a giant hoax? Let us know in the comments below, and then make sure if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, hit that bell, and subscribe.
If you'd like to support us and the channel, we have recently launched a merch store with proceeds going to a dog charity called Last Day Dog Rescue. If you'd like to buy something from the merch store, the link is below in the description. And thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Boneyard TV Conspiracy Files.